We have a good turnout. Can you see the crowd, Genevieve?
Yes.
It's under my name.
I marvel at your ability to be so analytic that several worlds are gathering on one screen. Hey, Sophia is here. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Okay, good. There are teams on, we have a complicated setup here. Anyway, we're going to start. You can see the slides, right? There are remote people. There's Smith. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm really delighted to see everybody here. I'm Howard Gold. I'm a professor in the government department, and I am the faculty liaison for the Geneva program. I just want to introduce a few people before we start. Lisa Johnson, who many of you may know, is the Associate Dean for International Study. Christiane Mettrel for the French department, who will be able to handle questions both about French preparation and Geneva, since she is actually a native of the area. And Angela Pisano, who's been at Smith now for 2.5 weeks and is our new study abroad coordinator. And then we have several people, you can see several people visiting remotely. We have a few students, but we have we have Geneviève Piron, our director in Geneva, who's waving, and she'll speak in a minute or two. And then we have 2 students, Elsa and Sophia, who are both alums of the Geneva program and they're not on campus, obviously. They both graduated. We normally bring seniors, but for obvious reasons, there are no seniors on campus now who were in Geneva last year. So I'm going to start with a slideshow. And before I start, I just want to say, I'm glad to see so many of you show up. I'm biased, admittedly, but I think this is our top program. It's a fantastic program in a fantastic city. It has a focus on international relations, but it's not exclusively international relations. In fact, we accommodate students from many different disciplines, the humanities, the social sciences, and the sciences. We have agreements with the University of Geneva and the Graduate Institute, so our students can take courses at both of those institutions. There's really good language preparation, language study in Geneva as well. And Geneviève Piron can tell you a bit more about that in a few minutes. And it's also in a city that is arguably, it's extremely livable. If you like the outdoors, you're not going to find a better city than that. It's very cosmopolitan, and of course, it's very international as the home of the United Nations and many international agencies. So I'm going to start with a brief slideshow, and then I'm going to turn it over to Geneviève Piron and others who may say a few things. Hang on a sec. How come I can't change slides? Let's see. There we go. Other Geneviève and Christiane, feel free to, and our former Geneva students, feel free to speak if you see anything that I am not saying. I'm just going to go through this fairly quickly. This is Le Jet d'eau. It's the tall fountain that is one of the signature monuments of Geneva. It's another view. Geneva is situated on a lake, Lac Léman, Lake Geneva. And there are 2 sides to the lake, the international communities on one side, the universities mostly on the other side. So it's situated on the lake. This is one of the campuses of the University of Geneva. This is the same building on the other side. This is the large kind of social economic science campus of the University of Geneva. This is the 3rd campus of the university. This is the Graduate Institute with its spanking new buildings, new residents. You'll see a picture of that in a minute. And so many of you would be taking a class or 2 there as well. I just have some scenes of Geneva. This is the old city. You recognize some of this? Oh, yeah. There's outdoor cafes in the old city. This is an old synagogue, which is across the road from the Smith Center. The Smith has really wonderful offices with a kitchen, library, computer room, study spaces, which are very close to the University of Geneva. Great location. This is one of our residences in the old city. This is the new residence that we're going to be sending several students to at near the Graduate Institute. It's extremely new, and I'll let Geneviève Piron tell you more about that in a few minutes. And again, if you have questions, we'll certainly have time about residences and things like that. We certainly can handle those. This is this, just an old tram on a street where the Smith Center is located. This is the Reformation Wall near the university. This is also one of the famous sites where these human-sized chess pieces. Wonderful transportation in Geneva, really fantastic public transit, trams and buses. If you like cheese and good food, there's no shortage of there's no shortage of dairy. I'm going to actually ask Genevieve Piron to explain what this is right now. Genevieve.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you well.
So this is a very typical Geneva object. Is a chocolate kind of pot with marzipan vegetables in it. It's to celebrate the victory of Geneva against the nearby nowadays Français in the 17th century Savoyards who attacked the city. And Geneva remained a republic for a long time, and it has a strong spirit of independence. So this celebration is extremely popular. There is a marathon. People are running through the city, old people, children, and they have a little bit like Halloween. The children are singing an old song, and it's a very strong and interesting event that is completely unique in Switzerland because it's only in Geneva, and it's called l'Escalade. There is a lot of people with horses and fires in the old town, and it's extremely interesting to be there to see that kind of medieval almost celebration that everybody is participating in.
Thank you.
And everybody eats a lot of chocolate because you give these little things to each other, you know.
Okay, thank you. Here we got the train station. I put it up to show you. Geneva is very centrally located, and many of our students do incredibly extensive traveling when they're there by train or by playing cheap flights. Things have changed a bit in the last year or two, but possibilities exist. You see the mountains from Geneva from across the lake. Switzerland is known for its precision clocks and watches. There's a flower monument to that. United Nations. A group of our students from a couple of years ago. A group of our students in front of the World Trade Organization. Celebration probably of the birthdays at the Smith Center. And I'm just going to go through, I'm going to do this fairly quickly. A lot of this is online. There are 3 tracks and a particular graduate program, which I'll talk about very briefly here. Track A, the internship track. Track B, the university studies track. Track C, the international relations track. And then we also have a 5-year special master's BA/MA program with the Graduate Institute. I'll talk more about that at the end. So again, I'm going to go this fairly quickly. These are the features of each of the tracks. Track A essentially is a intensive internship with an international organization or an NGO for 16 hours per week. Genevieve Piron is constantly updating and adjusting our internship offerings, and we'll work with you to try and place you in an internship that you're interested in. The one thing we've learned over the years is if you're open-minded about where you intern, you're probably going to have a better experience than if you go in with very, very narrow ideas of where you want to go. So, but we've been vigilant about screening these internships, and they tend to be high quality. So you do the internship, that's kind of the centerpiece of track A. You do a course at the Smith Center on humanitarianism with a professor from the Graduate Institute. You do a research paper we call the PRACTICUM in International Organizations, it's essentially a special study. It produces a long paper under the supervision of a PhD student at the Graduate Institute. Again, that's coordinated by Genevieve Piron. You take French. I'll let Genevieve tell you a bit more about the French offerings later. And then one other course, your 4th course at the University of Geneva or the Graduate Institute, 16 to 18 credits, including 2 for orientation. And we require 1 semester of college level French. And I'll let Christiane tell you more about the French offerings when I'm through this section, how that works. You need just one semester for track A and for track C. For track A, so I just said this, note about the French courses. For track A, you need one semester of college French. Students with no background in French would take French 101 in the fall semester. Is French 101 now offered in the spring semester as well?
Yeah, next semester we're going to have, of course, it's a tryout. Usually you have to take 101 in the fall and do 103 in the spring. But next spring, we're going to offer a 101 course so that if you want to go to Geneva in the fall, you would be able to go.
So you should keep that in mind. It's because sometimes students get squeezed and have trouble getting a French course, and if they've come to the realization fairly late that they want to go to Geneva. And this is also fairly new, that last bullet point, I think. Is that still true? If you've taken a year or two of high school French, you can bypass French 101 and go straight into French 103?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's say 2 years of high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm not going to go through all of these. Just to give you a sense, these are some of the research papers, topics, the practicum topics that our students have written about. They tend to write, again, some of these are closely related to students' internships, and some of them are further afield. But I'll leave this up for a sec so you can see, and I'm happy to show it to you again later if you want to peruse. Again, just to give you an idea of some of the internship topics. And of course, this would depend on your interests. This is really hard to see, so I'll go through quickly. It's just to give you a sense of the internships where we've placed students in recent years. I'm not going to read through all of them, but I'll just read through some of them. Defense for Children's Rights International, Indigenous Peoples Center for Documentation, Research and Information, Geneva Observers, an English language newspaper. The internships tend to be in English, by the way. Geneva Center for Security Policy, I'm not sure they're still functioning. And I'll let our students who are our alums of the program talk about their experiences in their internships. International Bridges for Justice, Keynes International, it's a consulting group, et cetera, women at the table. So these are just to give you a sense of the internships. I include this photo here. The student, the young woman here is actually a Smith alum, a Smith member of the program. And she's actually giving a speech at the UN Human Rights Council. This is a moment of pride for us and for her. Track B is university studies more intensively. It requires, I'm going to start at the bottom, it requires 2 years of college level French if you decide to go for the full year. One of the things about Geneva, you can go for 1 semester or 2 semesters, either fall or spring, or you could go for the full year. If you go for the full year, you need 2 years of college level French. And if you go for the spring only, we don't have fall only track B for logistical reasons. But if you do spring semester track B, you're expected to have 1 year of college level French. What would you do here in track B? You would take courses at the University of Geneva in French and or English, courses at the Graduate Institute primarily in English. You would have the option of taking the humanitarianism seminar. If there's space, you would take French. If you were interested in a part-time internship, that could be arranged. And then track C, sorry, is there a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The 2 years of French, is that 4 semesters? Yeah. Or does it have to be all consecutive?
No, it's 1 semester. But if you're going your junior year abroad,
Yeah.
then it's a semester every year.
Right, because if you go for the full year of your junior year, you need to have 4 semesters before you go.
Yeah.
Right. Track C is a fairly new, it's more of a focus on international relations per se. 1 undergraduate course at the Graduate Institute, a 2nd course at the Graduate Institute, which may be undergraduate or graduate level courses. Most of their courses are graduate level, but they have a small undergraduate program for international students. You would take the humanitarianism seminar at the Smith Center, French, and the Graduate Institute has organized a mentoring program for students in the undergraduate program, which includes our track C students. And that involves meetings, visits to international organizations, and meetings with practitioners, members of these people who work at these organizations who come talk to the group. It's kind of a mentoring, career-oriented focus. And it's like track A, you need 1 semester of college level French. And then the 5-year BAMA program, I'm going to do this quickly because Is there a hand up?
Just before you go on to drug B, am I another possible combination of tracks? Is you could do track A in the fall and then track B or C in the spring.
Right.
So,
Right, good. That's a good point.
Is there no possibility to do track B in the fall?
There isn't, and that's because of the calendar of the university. Oh, track A in the fall? Oh, yeah, of course there, B. There isn't right now because of the calendar of the University of Geneva. Genevieve, correct me if I'm wrong, but they hold their final exams too late for our students if it's fall only. Is that correct, Genevieve?
Yes, the exam session is in January, February, so it's complicated to be a track B in the fall. It's maybe manageable, but
If you have good French and if you took courses where we could guarantee that you wouldn't have an exam in February, it might be manageable, but I'm not sure how much of that could be prearranged. Okay. The BAMA program, I want to point out that this Friday in this room at 12:15, there'll be a session devoted to that with colleagues from the Graduate Institute. In short, though, you do fall semester of your senior year at the Graduate Institute. You come back to Smith for your final semester, and you graduate with the BA as you normally would after 4 years. You then go back to Geneva after you graduated from Smith for a 5th year as a regular graduate student at the University of Geneva, and you would finish the MA at the end of that year. So you would have the BA from Smith and the MA from the Graduate Institute in 5 years instead of what would normally be 6 years. The GPA requirement is 3.5. Let me just finish this and I'll take your question. You cannot be in deficit. You need 96 credits by the end of your junior year. If you've been gone for the full junior year, you're not eligible for the program because of Smith's residency requirements, and there is no language requirement. You will take French as soon as you get there at the Graduate Institute. Sorry, there was a question about that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, so if you're interested in the Washington DC internship program, would you be able to go to Geneva, say, in the spring semester and then go to DC in the fall semester?
Yes. Yes, you would.
Are there limited options for what you can achieve a master's degree in this program?
I'll talk much more about that on Friday if you can come. If you can look at the Graduate Institute's website, there are, I think, 5 or 6 disciplinary masters and 1 interdisciplinary master now. And so though you have to choose, you have to apply into one of those tracks. And these are masters in international economics, international relations, anthropology and sociology, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Sorry, this is a similar question, but I don't know. Could you also, if you're interested in the DC internship program, could you go to Geneva in the fall and then come back to Smith and go to DC in June?
Yes, you could go as a senior. You could do the Picker program.
Right.
Yeah, we do. We have students. Yeah, there's no reason you can easily combine Picker before or after Geneva. And my colleague Brent Durbin, who runs the Picker program, should be here any minute. So I'll tell him to say a word about that afterward when he shows up.
It's for all of these programs, but if you've taken, for example, like 2 years of college French for one only, it doesn't have a language requirement, only has 1 semester requirement. Are you going to be placed into like a different level of French there?
Genevieve, did you hear that question? Can you unmute?
sorry,
The question was if you've got 2 years, if you're somewhat advanced, if you have 2 years of college level French, but you go into track A or you go into track C, will you be placed at a higher level of French?
So at the Smith,
In Geneva.
of course, at the Smith Center, you will take advanced French, and there are also many options at the University of Geneva. You could also replace the course that you are offered at the Graduate Institute with a course at the university, I don't know, in science, in history, in political science. We encourage to do that. There are also some courses at the Graduate Institute that are taught in French because it's a bilingual institution where everybody can take a class. Taking a class in English can ask questions in French and write in French, and the opposite is true as well. Even though it's overwhelmingly actually English speaking because of the global trends, it's still possible. So you can be sure to take options to improve your French.
So, and there are several levels offered at the Smith Center. It's not all introductory. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to stop talking about the BME program, but you should come on Friday. As I said, there's going to be a presentation by 3 colleagues at the Graduate Institute, 2 of our Smith students who are currently there, and me. Okay. So I'm done with the presentation. I'll go back to the top. Genevieve, do you want to add anything general or specific? And then I'll see if you want to say anything about French, and I'll talk.
I don't have much to add, but if there are questions.
Okay, good. And then we'll ask our students to say a word or two, and then we'll take questions. Genevieve, why don't you speak a bit?
Well, first, I must say that I'm very moved to see my former students, because they are students from a very special year. We went through a lot of things together. So yes, I'm very, very moved. Hello, Elsa and Sophia. You are really in my heart. So yes, the Geneva program is amazing because it's a small city with a very big global scope. And today I was looking for new NGOs for our internships, and I was thinking that there were about 250, but I saw that there are in fact 450. So yes, there is a pool of activities around peace, human rights, the environment, health, and it gives occasions to undergrads to participate a little bit in this life and go to some conferences and try to understand what is the life of lobbying for human rights, what it is to work in an office for ideal causes that sometimes are in fact very grounded in problematic realities. And it's a big center for diplomacy, but also for international trade, even though it's a very small city. And I think that is what is so interesting, is that it's a small city that is not overwhelming like Paris or New York. That's why, in fact, people come here also, because they will meet each other easily. It's also very close to nature, so it's easy to hike and to take advantage of the lake or the mountains. And there is a mix of, the quality of life is very high. It's also quite expensive, but it's also easy to network and to, I think, there are a lot of conditions to help you understand what you want to do in life if you have a lot of wishes, because you can do academic courses at the University of Geneva, which is a state university with a lot of departments. You have the Grad Institute that is specialized in international studies, development studies, international economics. And you have work. Work is always giving new scope in life, and cultural activities, sportive activities, because you have the status of the student in Geneva. So yes, I think it's very rich.
Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Do many students who choose to do track A, internship track, choose to apply their praxis for those internships?
Do students who choose to do track A, the internship track, do they tend to use praxis to fund their internships? Well, praxis is only summer, is that correct?
Yes, they actually do, but it's of course not at all mandatory. You are doing the internship during the academic semester on the basis of a legal contract that is stamped with the university. It's a learning experience, 16 hours per week during the semester. And some students choose to go on with the internship or do another internship during the summer, just spring semester or during the interterm. So they benefit from another experience, a second internship that is full-time.
So if for students who would stay on in the summer after, say they did track A in the spring, it's not inconceivable that they would stay on in an internship and then use their praxis. But I think that would have to be worked out, but it's happened for sure. Before we go on, I want to introduce my colleague, Brent Durbin, who walked in, who's the head of the director of the PICR program. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because there have been a couple of questions about combining PICR with Geneva. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that later. Okay, Genevieve, anything else to add at the moment right now?
Yes, actually that PICR in the fall and Geneva in the spring is a must.
It's a fantastic combination. She didn't say mess, she said must. I'm going to ask Elsa and Sophia to speak briefly about their experiences. Just tell us about what track you were in, if you did an internship where, about the residence life, about life in Geneva, courses, how they compare to Smith courses, work-wise, and et cetera. So,
What are they doing now?
yeah, where are you now? What are you doing now? Why don't we start? I'm going to go with Elsa since she's higher up on my screen.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you for
So
giving
great
us,
to
by
see
the
so
way.
many of you are here. I'll just say first that this program and the people I met through it really, really changed my life. I cannot recommend it enough. I was thinking through what I wanted to say on this call, and the list is honestly too long. But I'll just start and say, I'm currently living in Washington, D.C. I graduated May 2021. I'm working as an investment analyst for a portfolio consulting company based out of Boston, actually, but I'm working in the Arlington office. Yeah, I was abroad in spring or in fall 2019 to spring 2020. And yeah, I did track A. I worked with Kennis, which is the kind of nonprofit consulting group that Smith works with. And they primarily focus on science and like medicine-based nonprofits and NGOs. So I was working with the director of the World Stroke Organization. I was essentially her executive assistant while I was there, and worked with her to produce a lot of materials for the organization and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, any kind of professional experience you can get in undergrad is amazing, but I think having that internationally is a huge benefit that Smith offers through this program. I can't recommend it enough. You get so much experience and so many soft skills in addition to whatever technical skills you might learn on the job, being able to interact with people of a number of different backgrounds, international histories, and all of that really is so valuable in life. And also my company sent me to a business-wide weekend retreat in Prague. So that was also a very fun part of my semester. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more specific. I can talk a little bit about classes.
Tell us a bit about classes and then we'll ask Sophia to speak.
Perfect, yeah. The academics for me, that was actually one of the main reasons that I decided to go to Geneva. I wanted to study abroad in Europe. I knew that early on, but Geneva was actually not my original plan. It was Madame Matrel who suggested that I look into Geneva because I was interested in pursuing economics and government. And of course, combining that with French was really the perfect offering that Geneva could give me. So I decided to apply and absolutely loved all the classes I took. I can't stress enough how accommodating Genevieve and the entire Smith program is. I think you just can take advantage of everything that's offered to you through all of the programs, all of the institutions, whatever your interests are. Of course, it's a little bit easier if you're already interested in economics and government, but I think we had a very wide range of majors when I was in Geneva in my class. And I think everyone was very happy with how their course schedule ended up. And yeah, I think especially with the levels of French as well, everyone came in at a different place, and the Smith Center is really so good about accommodating each person to their level and encouraging growth beyond what I even could have imagined, linguistically and of course personally as well. So yeah, can't recommend it enough.
Thank you. That's really great. Sophia, why don't you tell us a bit about your time in Geneva?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we hear you. Great.
Great. I'm Sophia. I'm from Greece. I'm class of 2021. I was actually one of the few science majors. So I'm a neuroscience major. And I really wanted to do the Geneva program because I wanted to see how the public health aspect of a science major would impact my career ideas and what I wanted to do after Smith. So I wanted to see if I actually want to do clinical work or if I want to do the public aspect and the policy aspect, which Geneva is really strong on. My internship was at IOM. So I did research on tuberculosis. And what I did was I completed all the requirements for neuroscience within my first, second, and last year. And so I used the whole Geneva study abroad because I did both track A and B to take the non-major classes. So it really broadened up my my curriculum, and I got the chance to take a lot of humanitarian classes outside of neuroscience. Other than that, the French options were very flexible. I think Madame Piron was very accommodating and she catered to each one of our needs because everyone has a different background of French. So I think I combined a learning class with a class taught in French. So I took a biology course in French, which could count towards the French requirement. And the paper was also a very interesting experience for me because it should be a humanitarian paper, but I wanted to bring in science background to it. So I worked on an evolutionary scheme of morality and moral choices in humans and how the brain works with that. So yeah, overall, it was very interesting bringing together science and policy and public health.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. That was great. Thanks. You can see why Genevieve recruited these two students to speak. They're great advocates for the program. I guess we're going to open up to questions, and I'm going to ask Brent to respond in a minute. But why don't we start with your hand up?
Sophia, sorry, I'm not hearing you, so you can.
I'll translate if necessary. Just talk loud.
What was it like taking a science class in French? Because I'm pre-health and I want to do some science classes in French. How difficult was it?
Okay, so I was pre-health too. I forgot to say what I am right now. I work at MGH, Mass General Hospital. I do clinical research.
Sorry, I love MGH. I've done some stuff there.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I think it worked out great for me. I mean, I'm already international, so I'm used to learning in a different language. So that helped. And all the Greek vocabulary definitely helps with terminology. I don't think it was really that hard. The science level at Smith is higher, I would say. So getting the concept is not hard. It was mostly a matter of relearning some of the stuff you know and learning new stuff in a new language. So it was tricky, but I would say definitely doable. And for me, for example, it was great on my CV that I said that I've worked both in Greece, Switzerland, and the US. Like they like that, you've worked with different communities, different people. That's very important for all types of jobs, not only science.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's start with some questions. Go ahead.
As far as
Just talk loud if you could.
As far as living accommodations, I have two questions. One, are you living in a dorm or with a host family? And for another, what is the meal situation like? Is there a meal plan, or are you responsible for your own food?
Dorm or host family was the first question. The second was, are there meal plans? What's the food situation? So I'll let the students or Genevieve respond.
I lived in a dorm, a student dorm, so no host family. I cooked my own meals. I am on financial aid, so we had financial support by Smith, which I think was very generous, and it definitely covered everything I needed. So it was a weekly stipend to get our food, because at Smith, usually I would eat on campus. And I lived with 4 other students. We shared a kitchen. Each one of us had our own bathroom, but also that differs because they're a bit different, the student residencies.
Genevieve, could you tell us just a bit about the 2 residences that we put most of our students in? What the situation is?
First, I want to say that it's true that it's demanding independence, like students have to budget and buy their food and then cook for themselves, and with a quite intense mix of work, studies, research, it's challenging. I mean, it's definitely making you an adult. We have 2 residences at the moment. We have the Home Saint-Pierre, which is a women's only old historical building with single rooms and shared bathrooms and a shared big kitchen. And the Graduate Institute new residence, which has only single, even studios, depending on the semester. And you can have a small kitchenette in your studio, or you have a shared kitchen and other facilities where you can, yes, share the rooms or even a small gym, etc. But it's a little bit less central. And we are hoping to have again some rooms closer to the Smith Center in another students' residence where they have shared suites, flats, but there is a housing crisis in Geneva, so we're just hoping.
So we don't normally
no
do
homestays, no, for sure, no homestays. It's because of the housing crisis and because of the fact that there are a lot of expats, it's really not easy to find. Homestays would be outside Geneva, and it's not very nice to depend on buses. So we really offer more independence, and actually students like it.
Yeah.
You have a question? Yeah.
Can we complete Latin honors requirement in Geneva?
Can you what? Say that
Can we
again?
complete Latin honors requirement?
Can you complete Latin honors requirements in Geneva? The answer is yes. Just courses there will count towards one of the disciplines as they would at Smith. Brent Durbin, as I said, is director of the Picker program. And we had a couple of questions about combining Picker with track A or with any of the other tracks.
I'm going to come up so I can say hi to Genevieve and to Elsa, who was my student. Hi there.
And so the question were essentially, could you do Picker before Geneva? Could you do Picker after Geneva? And the answer basically is yes to both.
Yes, I'll be both. And I'm happy to talk with people about, with Picker, you do 3 Gov courses, so you come away with a lot of Gov credit. And so sometimes you might get too much Gov credit if you do lots of Gov classes in Geneva as well. So that's one consideration if you do both. But we've had successful, I think one year we had 5 students go straight from DC to Geneva. And basically, that was really fun. I think they had a nice cohort and they had a good experience, but really it seems to be a nice complementary program. You could end up doing 15 months of internship, basically, if you do summer before Picker, go to DC, go to Geneva, internship in the spring, and then stay for a summer. Like that's a lot of experience as an undergrad to take with you after you graduate. So you don't have to do all that. That's some students have. It's pretty amazing.
Let me reiterate something I said earlier, which your comments reminded me of, which is that though there's a lot of government available in Geneva, it's not exclusively for government majors. There are plenty of courses at the University of Geneva in the humanities, for example. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Would you suggest so would that be that course of going from DC to Geneva? Would that be from your in the junior year's course of the junior?
Yeah, so that'll be your whole junior year. If you did the reverse and went to DC, because Picker program only runs in the fall. So you could do fall Picker and then I guess senior year fall Geneva.
Yes, correct.
Or you could do spring
That's right.
Geneva and then fall Picker.
As a
those
senior.
work as well. I think those would work as well. But I think historically most people who've done both have done full junior year life.
Yeah, go ahead.
This isn't about the Picker program, so I can wait if someone else has some questions about that. But I was wondering what the workload is like compared to being at Smith with balancing an internship and having classes.
This is for Picker?
No.
In Geneva. Could you hear the question, Sophia and Elsie?
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit. I think, it's definitely a lot of work, particularly doing track A and the internship. Those hours do add up, but it's very manageable. I think the class structure of the classes that we have in Geneva, they're a little bit different from how Smith operates and how a lot of American colleges and universities operate. So typically you don't really have a lot of turnover in your work. It's at least for the Graduate Institute and the University of Geneva, you're really working towards either an exam or a paper at the end. So you do have to be quite diligent in pacing your own work throughout the semester so that you're not stuck with a whole bunch of long papers and exams at the end. But it's definitely doable. The program is designed to be doable and rewarding for everyone. I think it does cut down into maybe the time that you could take to travel. You're going to be working on the weekends, maybe more than your friends who are on different tracks. But I think I still manage to travel quite frequently. It's really just about prioritizing your work and making sure that you can stay on top of that kind of during the duration of the program.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there anywhere where you can see the courses available to Smith students?
Is there anywhere you could see courses available to Smith students? Genevieve, I'll let you answer that. Like a catalog, that kind of thing. That our students.
Yeah, on the website you have I think the Smith Center classes are presented, and for the Graduate Institute and the University of Geneva there are catalogs that you can consult. But of course the Graduate Institute, they have 20% more students enrollment this year because of the COVID crisis, and all the students who couldn't go to the US are stuck in Europe. So it's difficult to know in advance what classes exactly you can get. But yes, you can consult the catalogs or write to me and I will send you the links.
Other questions, or how are we doing for time? I don't have my watch.
We've got plenty of time, about 20 minutes.
Okay, good. What else can we, yeah, go ahead.
About internship, like, do we apply for those particular?
Good question. So Jenny, I'll let you answer that. Do students apply for particular internships? How does the placement application and placement process, how do they work with internships?
So yes, it's quite a long process because we start just after, once you know you are accepted in March, April, we start to do a workshop to present the procedure to get the applications, because internships in Geneva are extremely competitive, especially for undergrads. Actually, there are very few undergrads that get through to get an internship. So it's a big work of networking and be open-minded and understand that you won't go to the WHO or to the World Economic Forum. You will go in smaller NGOs that very often give you more interesting work, by the way. And so we start to explain how to write a European-like CV and how to write the cover letter, and you present your internship preferences on the basis of a list that we update every year. And then I Zoom with you to also help understanding your priorities. And then you have to do the application. We go back and forth. We are very demanding, so you will see. It's a long process. And then we place you, maybe it doesn't work, maybe it works. And we are in constant correspondence for this.
I just want to add that our program in Geneva, compared to other American schools, is really unique. We're the only program that essentially is fully integrated into the University of Geneva and the Graduate Institute and offers such extensive internships. You'll find pieces of that in other programs, but nobody puts it together like we do. Yes.
What is the likelihood of the next academic year's session for study abroad being canceled, particularly in Geneva?
What is the likelihood of study abroad being canceled? I'm going to, particularly in Geneva, I'll let Genevieve and Lisa address that. Genevieve, how do things shape up in terms of COVID restrictions and preparations in terms of next year?
Of course, I'm not a prophet, but I think that since the crisis is now global, I mean, we have to live with this pandemic, and we will live with it, and things are a little bit the same everywhere. Here is a bit like on the East Coast. International travel is working again. Conferences are coming back. It's still more hybrid than it used to be, but personally, I don't think we can now confine people again or close the borders again, but you know, I mean, we have to live in times of uncertainty. I think it's not probable because as I said, this crisis is global and we'll have to simply react to, but what is good is Geneva was extremely quick at organizing remote courses, and we are organized for that. So if there is a need, we know how to do that. It worked well in the situation of emergency, and we improved a little bit the situation since then. I think it was certainly much easier to live in Geneva during this crisis than in Paris, because we were very free. We could go around. It's a very liberal country where there was no strong state action in the sense of we were quite free, and it was reasonable, I think. So I'm very optimistic.
Want to say anything, Lisa?
Yeah, I would agree with Genevieve. You know, we're getting, every day we're getting better and better at living within a pandemic and stuff. And so there's students in Geneva right now. There's a group of students going to Geneva next semester. So unless, you know, the world takes a significant nosedive with regards to the pandemic, I don't foresee that there would be any reason for the college to decide not to allow students to study abroad and study abroad specifically in Geneva. We are assessing the situation on a regular basis. We have a risk advisory group that is looking at very specific criteria that we have defined as part of the college to give a thumbs up or give a thumbs down on that. So I would say for right now, if you're willing trust us and trust the college to do that assessment, risk assessment for you. And if we're saying, go to Geneva, then I think it's safe to do so.
I was going to reiterate one point, which is that we're sending students now, as Lisa said, we're sending students next semester. I would guess if we're doing that, we're very likely to send students in the fall because we know a lot more than we had in the past. So I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, there's a question over here.
So if we want to go next year or in spring semester, should we still apply now or should we wait until?
When to apply for a spring semester of next year? Lisa, why don't you answer
So
that?
the application deadline for Geneva is the first Monday in February of 2022. So February 7th to 2022 for fall semester, the academic year, and spring 2023. And the spring semester is very popular, and we often get more applications than we have spots on the program. So applying early is a really good idea.
And let me just say, though, I'll say more about this Friday. For those interested in the BAMA program, there's a much earlier deadline. It's in December. Yeah, there's some hands here. Go ahead.
Is that February 7th deadline? Sorry, I just don't know if you have the sheet thing. Is that for like if you're going, so say like you're going, you want to go in fall your junior year, you would apply February 7th for your sophomore year?
Correct.
Okay.
For your first year?
Yeah.
So for first years in a room, your deadline, if you're thinking about studying abroad during your junior year, your deadline will be the first Monday of February, the year before you go abroad. So
your
this
sophomore
year
year.
for students going abroad 2022, 2023, it's February 7th. If you're not thinking of going abroad until 2023, 2024, then look at February 2023, the first Monday in February, that's going to be your deadline for the.
Yeah, go ahead.
A little bit more about the
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say it again.
Yeah, is everyone registering a Geneva program like eligible to get with financial aid or is there any conditions?
I'm gonna let Lisa. It's a question about financial aid. I'm gonna let Lisa answer that.
So the answer is yes. If you're approved to study abroad, Smith has what we call the homeschool fee policy, which states that the students pay tuition, room and board to Smith as if they were here on campus. And then on behalf of the student, we will cover the tuition, room and board expenses for them. This allows the student to access their full financial aid to apply to tuition, room and board. So if you receive financial aid from Smith, it will be exactly the same. The one change that will likely happen will be with work study. If you have work study as part of your financial aid package, that something will happen to that. And what that something is a conversation you need to have with student financial services.
And so when you're in Geneva every month, I think there's a stipend for food.
That's right.
You know, that's how it works.
I guess, go ahead.
How is acceptance to the program determined?
How is what?
How is acceptance to the program determined?
How is acceptance to the program determined? I'm gonna let Lisa.
Yeah, so the
Answer that.
expectation is that students applying to the program are meeting the eligibility requirements. So they have a 3.0 GPA, they don't have a credit shortage. And I was gonna say a quick caveat with combining the PICR program in the fall. The PICR program is only 14 credits, not 16. So if you're on target with credits and you do the PICR in the fall, you have to have a plan to make up your credits because you can't go abroad second semester of your junior year with a credit shortage. So plan ahead if that's what you're thinking about doing. So credits, you have to be in good standing in student conduct, or student financial services, and things like that. As I mentioned, we get more applications than we do spots. Then we have spots on the program generally for the spring semester. In which case, the selection committee is looking to provide a good diversity of students, that they're not all from the same major, that they're not all from the same class. You know, we look at the letters of recommendation that are part of the application, and you know, hoping that the student has good support from their faculty members and a lot of different factors in order to determine who gets spots.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could get Genevieve's email so we can know her.
It's on the website.
Genevieve Piron's email is on the website. You could it's gpiron@smith.edu or just email me and I'll give it to you.
Oh, okay, awesome.
You can email any of us, by the way. We're happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we're going to stop so thank you for coming and we'll see you all next time. Thank you. Elsa and Sophia, thank you very much. You guys were fantastic.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's so good to have you and see you and to have you participate.
You're welcome.
Come back to drink champagne in Geneva, please. All of you. I miss you all.
Genevieve, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Howard. It was great.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Okay,
I'll let you go.
so 2 years for the equivalent.
Right.